That's unthinkable to me. That you have an opportunity in your lifetime to be a professional, that you think about quitting. See, you don't quit it, and you don't quit in sports. You retire. You don't get to quit. It's not an option. See, someone told me that a long time ago. That ain't even an option. And the person told me that, he ain't here anymore. He died. This is what's great about sports. This is what the greatest thing about sports is. You play to win the game. Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Randall Handles Football Podcast. I'm your host, Randall Tevas. So today we're going to take a deep dive and look into the Week 3 matchups in the NFL season. But before we do that, I would like to just preview the Week 2 matchups. So Week 2 saw a lot of exciting football. However, there was a lot of injuries that happened throughout the week, and to a lot of key star players around the league, starting with Christian McCaffrey of the Carolina Panthers, Saquon Barkley of the New York Giants, and of course, the rash of injuries that happened to the San Francisco 49ers, including Jimmy Garoppolo, Raheem Mostert, and Nick Bosa. So, a lot of injuries happened over this past week. There's a lot of speculation as to whether or not the lack of having a preseason had anything to do with all of these injuries taking place this early in the season. Well, I don't think it helped. However, there's always injuries that happen every single season. There's always people that are tearing their ACLs and tearing their Achilles, so on and so forth. That, to me, I don't think that the lack of a preseason had anything to do with this. I think, if anything, maybe the lack of a training camp, a long summer training camp, maybe had a little bit more to do with this. But even so, a lot of the players were still practicing on their own. They were holding private workouts with their teammates. So, it might just be one of those freak things, if you ask me. So, all in all, throughout all the matchups from Week 2, I correctly predicted 15 winners from Week 2. That's right. If you listen to my picks, I had 15 games correctly picked, and only one game I did not pick correctly. And that one game was the Los Angeles Rams beating the Philadelphia Eagles. Okay. On top of that, my lock of the week, the 49ers, did prevail. And my upset of the week, the Las Vegas Raiders, did in fact upend the New Orleans Saints in the home opener in Las Vegas. So, all in all, it was a very good week if you were following my picks. Now, when we look at the Week 3 matchups, these games on paper seem a whole lot more close than they were last week, right? When I was looking through what my lock of the week was, there really were not a whole lot of ones I actually felt very confident about. So this week, I expect it to be a little bit harder. I definitely don't think I'm going to get 15 of the 16 games correct. Actually, yeah, 15 of the 16 games correct. But we're still going to try our best. So starting out with our Thursday night football game, we have the Miami Dolphins visiting the Jacksonville Jaguars. And typically speaking, the home team has a much bigger advantage in these games than the road team does. However, much like last week's between the Browns and the Bengals, who are both Ohio teams, this week both teams are Florida teams, so there's really not a whole lot of traveling going on for the Dolphins anyways. So it almost is a bit of a toss-up. However, the Jacksonville Jaguars have looked like a very good team so far this year. Gardner Minshew is showing us exactly what he showed us last year. And so I do like the Jaguars to win this game on Thursday Night Football. I have the Jaguars beating the Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. The next game on Sunday sees the Houston Texans visiting Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, we all knew the Houston Texans were going to get off to a rough start. It was going to be a tough season for them with the departure of DeAndre Hopkins. Even these first 2 weeks have been very tough games. First going to Kansas City, and then last week taking on the Baltimore Ravens. those are two of the best teams in the entire NFL. So I don't think things are going to. I didn't see things starting out very well for them. But this week, Week 3 is a more winnable game. In Week 3, they travel to Heinz Field and take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, with that being said, it is a winnable game, but I still see the Pittsburgh Steelers coming out on top. I just like what what the Steelers offense has been doing since Ben Roethlisberger's been back. So I have the Steelers beating the Texans in this Week 3 matchup and dropping the Texans to 0-3. The third game in Week 3 sees the Cincinnati Bengals traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Listen, the Eagles have been a train wreck this season so far. Everybody in Philadelphia was very hopeful at the beginning of the season. I think they've lost a whole lot of hope. Last week we saw a lot of promise with Joe Burrow on the national stage in Thursday Night Football. However, I do not think that the Bengals will get their first win of the season this week. I think this is going to be somewhat of a rebound game for the Eagles. And I have the Eagles beating the Cincinnati Bengals this week. And I think it's going to be pretty handedly as well. The next matchup, oh man, it's the 49ers traveling to the dreaded MetLife Stadium. After the game last week, Kyle Shanahan said, hey, I think it's a bit of the turf. I think the field kind of sucks in New Jersey and at MetLife Stadium. And so unfortunately, the Niners have to travel again to New Jersey and to MetLife Stadium, this time to take on the New York Giants. I'm sure if you asked him, he'd probably want to rest every single one of his players so they don't get hurt again. However, that's not possible. Even with all the injuries to the San Francisco 49ers, they still have a lot more talent than the New York Giants do. And I know the Giants did just lose Saquon Barkley for the year too, and so that's a big piece of their offense. Even if they had Saquon Barkley, this wouldn't change my pick. I have the 49ers beating the Giants here in MetLife Stadium. The next matchup sees the Las Vegas Raiders traveling to New England to take on the Patriots. What an exciting game that was between the Patriots and the Seahawks last week. It came within 1 yard, I guess a little bit more than this, 1 yard of the Patriots upending Seattle in Seattle. However, they got that stop on the 1 yard line as time expired. That was a good chance for New England to start out 2-0, which would have been surprising to a lot of people. But ultimately, they did lose to the Seahawks last week. I think New England is going to right its wrongs, and they're going to win this game against Las Vegas in Week 3. The next matchup sees the Tennessee Titans traveling to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. Now, the Vikings, if I talked about, the Eagles being a train wreck this season so far, the Minnesota Vikings, man, oh man, and I've harped on this every single week thus far, and I'll say it again. When they lost their offensive coordinator, Stefanowski, and they had to bring in a new coordinator, things are going to be a lot different for the Vikings. Okay, they let go of a lot of their key defensive players along the defensive line, and they expected that their offense was going to be able to carry the team. Well, this is what happens when you bring in a new offensive coordinator. Kirk Cousins needs time. Dalvin Cook has not been productive at all, so it's kind of hard to gauge, how good the Vikings as a team are, or if it's just the coaching and the play calling. Tennessee's been off to a good start as well. In Week 1, the Tennessee Titans beats, let's see, who did they beat? They beat Denver on Monday Night Football on a last-second field goal. Last week, they won a thriller game against Jacksonville. I don't think the Titans are going to pull this one out this week. I'll give the Vikings their first win of the week here in Week 3. Our next matchup sees the Washington football team traveling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. Now, this may be an absolute, excuse my language, this game might be an absolute shit show, or it could be a very good game. I'm excited to see Dwayne Haskins come out and see how he performs against a Cleveland Browns team that's, allowed a lot of points this season so far. So this could be a real good game for the Washington offense. But ultimately, I like the Browns winning this game. I just think the Browns have a lot more weapons than Washington does. And so I have in Cleveland's home, so I have the Cleveland Browns winning this game against the Washington football team. The next matchup sees the Los Angeles Rams traveling to the East Coast to take on the Buffalo Bills. Thus far, I would honestly say Josh Allen has been the MVP of the league. I think he's somewhere about 8 touchdowns on the season, no interceptions. He has had a couple of fumbles, but his team's undefeated. They're playing good football. I have the Bills winning this game here against the Rams. not much to say about it. The Bills are home. They have a really good team. I'm not sold on the Rams 2-0 start yet. Okay, they need to win some prove-it games before I crown them. The next game sees the Chicago Bears traveling to Atlanta to take on the Falcons. Man, what an absolute crusher for the Falcons last week. It kind of reminded a lot of people of their Super Bowl loss against the Patriots, right? With that being said, Atlanta should have won the game last week. They should have been off to a 1-1 start. However, they are sitting at 0-2, I believe it is. Yes, 0-2 because they lost to Seattle in week 1. I think they get their first win of the week here against Chicago. Chicago just hasn't been that good on offense. I don't think it's going to be here either. I think Atlanta can do enough. They have the weapons to win this game. I have Atlanta beating the Chicago Bears here in week 3. The next matchup sees the Carolina Panthers traveling to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. As I said at the beginning of the show, Carolina Panthers just lost their running back, Christian McCaffrey, for it looks like about 4 to 6 weeks. That's their biggest focal point on offense. Losing a guy who touches the ball probably about 40% of the time is going to be a big issue to try to replace him on the offensive side. The Chargers had a surprise start last week by Justin Herbert at quarterback. It'll be interesting to see if he gets a start this week or if Tyrod Taylor is good to go. And even if Tyrod Taylor is good to go, who they ultimately start at quarterback, that'll be interesting to see. Either way, even if it's Tyrod Taylor or if it's Justin Herbert, I have the Chargers winning this game against the Carolina Panthers. I think with the loss of McCaffrey, the Panthers are just a little bit too depleted to be able to keep up with a good defensive team like the Chargers. And hey, Chargers had a real good shot last week of even upending the Kansas City Chiefs, which I think took a lot of people by surprise. But hey, maybe Justin Herbert is the real deal, so we'll see. I got the Chargers winning this week 3 matchup. The next matchup sees the New York Jets traveling to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. This is not my lock of the week game because I just do not feel that comfortable with Phillip Rivers in Indianapolis yet. Just like last season, it seems like he's thrown a lot of interceptions already in this season. So I think the Colts could potentially shoot themselves in the foot and end up losing this game to the Jets. They could. I'm not going to pick that, but I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if the Jets actually win this game. But ultimately, I am going to go with the Colts winning this game. I have the Colts beating the Jets in week 3. The next matchup, which could ultimately end up being the matchup of the week if it were not for our Sunday night game or Monday night game, but we have the Dallas Cowboys traveling to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Again, the Cowboys had that epic comeback last week against the Falcons that ultimately was capped off by an onside kick recovery. They drive down the field and get the game-winning field goal. I don't think Seattle is as bad of a team as Atlanta to allow something like that to happen. If it came down to it, if it was in the closing seconds, I think Russell Wilson's on a completely different level than Dak Prescott, even though Dak Prescott wants to be the highest-paid quarterback. So, I do like Zeke Elliott. He has had a good start to the season. However, I'm going to pick the Seahawks to win this game against the Cowboys. Like I said, it should be a good game. It should be an interesting game. I think it has a chance to be a real close game and come down to a final drive. So our next matchup of week 3, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the Denver Broncos. This game I have picked as my lock of the week. Again, even this game I don't feel 100% comfortable with. There's not a single game on the schedule that I feel 100% comfortable with picking. However, I'm going to pick the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as my lock this week to beat the Denver Broncos. I think, Tampa Bay, they haven't even started fully clicking yet. But I think once they do, they're going to be a real good team. Listen, you got Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, O.J. Howard, Cameron Brate, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. The list goes on and on. Okay, there's just way too much talent for them not to be a good team. And besides, Denver, they lost Von Miller for the season. They lost their starting quarterback, Drew Lock, for it looks like 4 to 6 weeks. They lost their top wide receiver, Courtland Sutton. So, a lot of injuries on the Denver side. I have the Buccaneers beating the Broncos, and this game is my lock of the week. Our last Sunday afternoon game sees the Detroit Lions traveling to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals are off to a terrific start. They're 2-0. The Lions, not so much. They're off to an 0-2 start. And I think with that being said, the Cardinals are going to be heavy favorites in this game. They're the home team. They'll probably be given about 7 points when Vegas comes out with their spreads. You know, a lot of these games on the slate for this week seem like they could go either way. And again, it's true with this game. However, I know that the Cardinals will be favored to win this game, and that is why I am picking the Detroit Lions as my upset of the week to beat the Arizona Cardinals. Okay, so I have the Lions beating the Cardinals this week. I think Matt Stafford has had a good start to the season as well. Not as good as Kyler Murray and the Cardinals, obviously, and DeAndre Hopkins. Man, they're just putting up numbers together, which I don't think anybody is surprised by. You know, Hopkins is, you know, week 1 put up like 15 catches. Last week got a touchdown and everything. So no surprise there that Kyler Murray is looking towards Hopkins on half of his throws. So, but again, I'll say it one more time. I have the Lions beating the Cardinals as my upset of the week this week. This moves us into our Sunday night football games. The Sunday night game, I think, will be a terrific game. We have the Green Bay Packers traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. New Orleans, you know, again, this is a game that could literally go either way. I know New Orleans will be the favorite team, but it'll probably be literally only by 3 points. In my personal opinion, if a team's only favored by 3 points and you pick the other team, that's not exactly an upset of the week, right? It's just picking the other team to win. So with that being said, I have Green Bay beating the New Orleans Saints. The Monday night game between the Saints and the Raiders showed a lot of weaknesses with the Saints. It looks like Drew Brees really needs Michael Thomas in order to thrive at his age of, I think, 42 or 43 years old. I don't think Michael Thomas is going to play in week 3. So, and besides, the Packers, man, what was it? In week 1, they almost put up like 40 points on the Lions. Last week against the Vikings, they put up another 40 points. No, sorry. I had that backwards. In week 1, they played the Vikings. In week 2, they played the Lions. Man, this Packers offense looks really good. Aaron Jones is, ran for like 180 yards last week, 3 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers has been crisp. This is a good Packers team right now. And if they can continue this, they are going to be a Super Bowl favorite as we move towards playoff season. So, in this Week 3 matchup, I'm choosing the Packers over the Saints. And lastly, our Monday Night Football, which should be the most exciting game on this week, we have the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The top 2 teams in the AFC and possibly the top 2 teams in the NFL. It's going to be a real exciting game, but guess what? Kansas City has absolutely owned the Baltimore Ravens over these last 2 seasons since Lamar Jackson's been the quarterback. I don't think it's going to change here. I'm not going to pick it to change. I have the Chiefs beating the Ravens on Monday Night Football in Baltimore. Okay, so those are all of my picks for the week. That's all of my breakdown of these picks. Again, I'll say it one more time. My lock of the week is going to be the Buccaneers beating the Broncos, and my upset of the week will be the Detroit Lions beating the Arizona Cardinals. So let me know what you guys think of my picks in the comments below. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you guys think. This has been another episode of the Randall Handles Football Podcast, and I will see you guys all next time. Enjoy Week 3 of the NFL season.
I don't care who you play, whether it's a high school team, a junior college team, a college team, much less an NFL team. When you turn the ball over 5 times, 4 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 3 others in field position to set up touchdowns, you ain't going to beat anybody I just talked about. Anybody. All right? And that was a disgraceful performance, in my opinion. We threw that game. We gave it away by doing that. We gave them the friggin' game. In my opinion, that sucked. What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.